Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast. This is your host, kushalmehra. All right, today's podcast is titled Sharana. Now, you might wonder, why is it called that? So, I'll give you a brief background. A few days ago, I came across a beautiful essay on some work that was being done. Obviously, Alo had sent me in that essay, and I read that essay, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I was like, I'm now interested. So I reached out to Alo and I told her that, we're going to be talking about this on the podcast. And so here we are. So today we're talking to Rajkala, Partha, and Alo Sood. Welcome.
Thank you,
Thank
Kushal.
you. Thank you, Kushal.
So, as this is both of yours first time on the podcast, so Rajkala and Alo, I'll request both of you first before we get into what Sharana is and what do you guys do as your work. Rajkala, you can start, and then Alo, you can also come in. Why don't you tell everybody a bit about yourself?
Okay, so I came to Pondicherry almost 30 years ago, and after finishing my masters in diploma in rural development, and I was working in an organization here for almost 9.5 years, and I quit that mostly because of philosophical reasons and didn't know what I would be doing, but was very clear, at least very sure about one thing, that I really wanted to work with children and women because that's where my interest lies. And I was not sure whether I would be starting an NGO, but it didn't take me much time to really start thinking in these lines. And because Pondicherry is a small town, it was not difficult for me to see the problems, because by then I had already got a fair exposure about the NGO world and scene in Pondicherry. So I started all by myself in the beginning, picking children up from different places of work who had discontinued their studies due to various reasons. Like it could have been like because alcoholism is a huge issue in Pondicherry. So many of these children had discontinued because to supplement the family income, and because of my work in Pondicherry, it again was not very difficult to identify areas and pockets. But what was challenging was that I did not get much support from the community, neither from the mothers, forget the fathers. And I was all alone in my scooter picking children from different places, from these little tea shops or little restaurants. This I'm talking of almost 22 years ago. And the only thing I could think of at that time was to send these children back to normal mainstream education, to government schools. And that is how my journey began, working with these children, because, very soon I came across an area in the north of Pondicherry where there was a community with almost 65 families who were involved in making this dyeing of the yarn. They were subsidized by the government. It was a government program. And when I just went into that community because of, I'd heard about that area, I realized that there were almost 60 to 65 children who were not at school. I mean, this is like, I'm talking of right in the middle of Pondicherry. This is not like, I'm not talking about, it's not a suburb, it's right in the middle of Pondicherry, and almost 60 to 65 children were not at school. Why? Because they were either working to supplement the family income, or because they had to take care of the young ones, because the mothers were working, the fathers were alcoholic. So this is how it started. And then the next point was obviously to get in touch with different government schools. And the paperwork was challenging because many of them did not have school certificates or the transfer certificate. And I mean, when I look back at, I didn't realize it at that time, but it took me almost 6 to 8 months to send these children back to these 65 children back to school. And while doing so, obviously, I was interacting with them on a regular basis. I was going to the community on a regular basis, daily basis. In fact, I was spending most of my time there. And that's when I realized that, okay, this is wonderful to send the children back to school, but, I didn't want to take the primary responsibility of that. It was very clear for me that, as an organization, by then Sharana was already established. As an organization, I was very clear, even as an individual, that, I want to be there more as a catalyst and not take away, not look at first these children in isolation, but always keeping in mind that they have a family, the responsibility falls on the parents, and that's how the programs grew. And I think it's fair to say that it has grown organically. And my personal journey, when you ask me, I think the most important point that even when I started, it was very clear in my mind. Even now, I will say this with lot of conviction that I have never undervalued the native intelligence of the people with whom we work. I have never. It has always been that I mean, we see a problem. Yes, there is a problem in a community or in a family, and we are just there as catalysts to help them to see, have maybe different ideas or different options that they have in front of them. So always work keeping in mind the native intelligence of any community with whom we work. So yes, that's how Sharana was born. That is how I started my work. And I think I'll pass on to Alu, and then we can maybe talk about the philosophy and the organization.
Hello.
Okay, so my journey is different, and obviously at some point we meet. So I was born in to parents who were members of the Sri Aurobindo ashram. So my upbringing is very, very unique. So I studied in the school here, and then after I finished my schooling, I stayed back in the ashram and I worked under my father in a farm called Gloria Land, which he pioneered organic agriculture back in the 1960s, even as Green Revolution was taking.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he's one of the pioneers in the movement, and I know what it means for. So I had a very close, direct connection with rural India, and the Pillarkuppam village, from where most of our workforce came, was a despondent village. It had very high suicide rates, and most of our workers. But over the generations, since the 1960s onwards, I have seen what steady income and a good workplace can do and actually uplift an entire village. I was never disconnected from the rural aspect of India ever at all. Then I left Pondicherry. I worked there for about 8 years. So then after I came back, I started to teach in our school. Uh, I teach. So my main job in the day is to teach in the Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education. And then I also very organically started to rework once a week with my sister, who now manages the farm. So the connect with the farm was always there. And then at some point, and Rajkala, in fact, our children are classmates.
Yes.
So I have always known her from far. I mean, so in the ashram, everybody knows everybody. So we, I think, had an immediate connection the first day we met when our children were admitted in kindergarten together. And we became very good friends. Again, I started to know her organization from far. And about 6 years ago, I told her that, you see, I have always worked either by myself from, I was, work from home sort of a situation, or for ashram, either for Gloria Land or for the school. I want to get another experience. And since the environment, all of this sustainability growth has always been part of my system, I actually approached another NGO that is into environment protection and all of that. But you see, with my father's background, he is into organic agriculture, sustainability, but he was never an archaic, retrospective kind of a person. He always innovated, always kept in touch with the latest innovations. He always was pro mechanization, so that he was never romantically attached to the image of poverty and love. He always felt that every person in rural India has a right to have a better life. It's okay if they get the education and go and move. This bending work of women, there is no romanticism in it. So I was never attached to anti-mechanization, anti-development. So with environment groups, the problem is that, a lot of their preaching is to actually retard development. And I was very uncomfortable. Actually, I committed to joining that organization. And then I told Rajkala, I said, I'm not comfortable because that's going so much against the grain of what I have learned from my father. Then I said, see, I'm not a trained social worker, but do you think I can do something in Sharana? And
thank God she came. Thank God she came to the organization.
So she said, yeah, we'll find you work, we'll find you work. So essentially, my job has been actually quite rewarding because what I do is that I document their stories. So we have, you see, over the years, lots of stories, successes, failures, interventions. We have had to abort programs, restart programs. We have changed lives. So my job was every week to come to the organization, and I'll have a list of sometimes even the beneficiaries sitting there, and sometimes I directly talk to the social worker, and I take very elaborate notes. And what has happened over the years is that because I am not completely disconnected from the problems of rural life, I tend to quiz them. I tend to quiz them very, very intensely, which because of which sometimes I don't know if I can change this.
Yeah, I think it is. It's nice because she has a very objective perspective. Because the challenge we face is that as much as we try to disconnect the heart and the mind, it's not easy. And I always tell the team that I we should not reduce these beneficiaries to it's reporting is a very important part of our work, and somewhere it all gets diluted. So we try not to reduce these beneficiaries into numbers, data, and statistics. So the mind heart link has to be always there. So when Alu comes with a very objective approach and perspective, it is true that sometimes she throws us off balance. Why? Why not this? But I think it is very important because you know, she claims that she's not a trained social worker, but she knows we don't need to be trained. I mean, she knows enough, and given her background, it makes it interesting. It makes it enriching for the team to have this kind of perspective from her. So yeah, it's a nice balance.
So
that we
yeah, so
have.
what I did do was whenever they had programs in child protection or media policy or all of that, when we invited very reputed organizations to give us the training, I have participated in those trainings so that I know the laws, I know the do's and don'ts. I insist on being given the same case scenarios to see if my instincts of what is a good thing, what is a bad thing, is this the fault of the child, is it the fault of the parent, what should have been the action given the scenario. I need to hone my instincts to see whether they are in line with what a responsible social action is. So I insist that I also am part of all the workshops that they do.
Yes.
So over the years, I have also like got trained
and assimilated into
Yes,
the
but I don't go to the field, but my work is documentation. Yeah, so that's what we do.
All right. So maybe now we start with this because I want to obviously talk about the detailed programs, but maybe Rajkala, before we get into the programs, can you also share what is the philosophy of Sharana? So when I say what is the philosophy of Sharana, let me elaborate a little bit. It's not just what is the mission statement. When I say what is the philosophy of Sharana, I mean to ask you that what is that makes Sharana unique in compared to other interventions that are happening maybe in the field of rural development or child development?
I think the most important point that I would like to make here, and what makes our work unique, is that we have very strong exit policies, and that's really unique because I come from the NGO background. I have worked in an NGO before. I see the various interventions and NGO. It's very easy for us for organizations like any NGO for that matter to fall into this very comfortable position, right? I mean, because you have the funding, you have the beneficiaries or a community, whatever with whom you're working, and it's comfortable when I say you can go on and on and on. But that has always been our strength. Our strength lies in the fact that because of our extremely diligent outreach, we are very strong with our exit policies. And the minute we see that we as an organization or as a program are becoming redundant in any community or any area, we are happy to come out. For example, we had a fantastic and a robust vocational training program in carpentry in the south of Pondicherry. And years ago, almost around 8-9 years ago, we had done a survey of the school dropouts in that area, and in 5 villages. And interestingly, the dropout rate was alarmingly high amongst boys. And that was because, many of these boys were continuing to work to supplement the family income. They were working as lorry cleaners. And so we really wanted to do something in the area of skill development. And interestingly, we found a donor who was interested because he was really keen on supporting us, because the donor came from Germany, and skill development is a huge thing in Germany. And so we started a program of carpentry in that area. And simultaneously, we were also ensuring that we started working with a government school there. And that government school, when we started working with this carpentry program, had only not more than 20-25 children attending. So our work was, on one hand, trying to recruit school dropouts to give them a skill development in carpentry, and simultaneously working with different areas and villages to enroll these children back into this government school. And every year we were training 10 carpenters, and it took us almost 6 years to train 60 carpenters. And seventh year, when our social workers started again looking for school dropouts, we realized that we couldn't find any school dropouts. It was fantastic for us to see, because somewhere our work was done right. I mean, there, and we couldn't find any school dropout. Boys were not available because all of them were going to school. And in fact, our portfolio, if you look at it, if we go deeper, is initially they're all first generation schoolgoers. And the very fact that sending them to a school itself was challenging. But what really emerged and what came out of this was very interesting, because they started, our portfolio started increasing, not just going to school, but they wanted to pursue their higher education. And when we started looking for school dropouts, we couldn't find any boys. So it was lovely for us to see that as an organization, as a project, that we have succeeded and we are no longer needed there. And it didn't take us even a minute to tell the donors that, sorry, our work is done here and we are out of this area and we do not want to continue. And they were quite aghast, and they said, but we have the funding for the next 5 years. You can continue, you can train carpenters. We said, no, we don't need your money, because unless you're happy to channelize your funds to some other program. And that also makes it very interesting, because this exactly shows that we are not a donor driven organization. We are, the work that is done is purely based on the ground reality, and that nobody can contest. So even if there was a donor who was ready to support us with next 5 or 6 years for this carpentry training program or skill development in any area for that matter, we refused that help. And we said that unless you are ready to support us for programs that where we need the funds, sorry, we don't need you. And these are risks that we are happy to take, right? I mean, and it also makes it extremely meaningful, the work that we are doing. And we are definitely not an organization where there is complacency. And in fact, we challenge all of this, the redundancy, complacency. We do not want to fall into this trap at all. And that's what makes it unique, and that's the fundamental philosophy that guides us and pushes us to perform better, pushes us to challenge the work that we are doing. And this is how we continue. And yes, we have grown organically, but significantly qualitative and development oriented. Yes, it has the organization has grown in quantitative, but significantly qualitative and focused on development. So
To contrast the other modes of intervention that we see many NGOs adopt, you will have typically one generation getting the aid. Say, children are being sent to school. And then you will have the second generation, the NGO intervenes again, and those children are being sent to school. And then you have a third generation, up to 4 generations. Essentially, what are you doing? Every time there are children being born, you are sending them to school. So that is not what is we consider to be a good model. What we mean is when we are sending your children as first generation schoolgoers, we empower those children to be able to educate themselves, and then they are off the list of beneficiaries. When they have children, they send their children to school. If we help our beneficiaries, suppose they are unskilled, we skill them, we give them a loan to start a business. If you can send your child to school, go ahead and send. We will withdraw that help. So that is the difference. So you appreciate the development oriented intervention, especially when you contrast it to a habit forming. Okay, we send children to school, therefore we will continue sending children to school no matter how many generations of the same family we are sending to school. So there is no development, you see there. So that in the contrast, this model really, really, I think, shines bright.
Yes, that's I think absolutely.
So I had a follow-up question now for both of you. Mm, so you guys, so what you would call this is an exit policy, right? Now here's the thing. Now sometimes when you go and work with people and you do these interventions with people, how do you guys make sure that I don't know how to say this because I don't want to sound condescending and I want to be very precise in my questioning. uh, how do we make sure that the beneficiary of the intervention does not become dependent on the person providing that?
I think that is made very clear from day one. And I spoke about the native intelligence. We do not go with the typical textbook structured solutions. We don't go with that attitude at all. Our approach is not like, okay, here's a problem, here's a community that requires our help, and we have the solution. Not at all. So from like, let's say we identify a community or a family, and from the beginning it is made very clear, and we ensure that any intervention is because the family or that beneficiary is interested in changing his or her life. It is, sometimes, as we were talking about, we have had a failures, we have had a successes, and yes, we have failed because they come with this approach of, we want, for example, you give us a material benefit. It's not that we have not given material benefit. We have always looked at interventions which is more development oriented and made it very clear to the beneficiary. And it takes time. It's not very easy. It takes time from the beneficiary's perspective to understand this, because initially the tendency is for them to come and ask for any material support. It could be anything, ranging from, give us money to buy bags, or give us money to, we don't have slippers, or give us money because we have a loan, and it just doesn't work that way with us. And that is why we do not mind taking time. Every intervention when we make with any beneficiary, it takes time, an average of sometimes even 2 to 3 months, and making it extremely clear from the beginning that we are here together in this, and making it also very clear that we might not be here after a few years. So somehow make your ensuring that their lives are not dependent on us by sheer virtue of the fact that just because they're coming to the organization or they're a beneficiary. No. Which also brings me to the point to say that as an organization, we are also always trying to be aware of government schemes, and ensuring that there's no duplication of the work, because Pondicherry is a small town, and you might see, for example, we have had cases where we have gone into a community, and there are maybe after 4 or 5 months there are 2-3 other NGOs walking into that organization, walking into that community, and we are happy to take a step back. And because then the problem comes, right? Because imagine in a community where there are maybe 80 families or 100 families, there are 3 or 4 NGOs working and doing the same work. And we send a very strong signal that we do not want to duplicate the work at all. And our work has to be unique, our work has to be development oriented. And if the community understands, great. If they don't understand, we are happy to walk out, because we do not want to duplicate, because it's a it becomes very easy. It is a very common practice because of whatever fundings and all. And we have had these situations years ago. We had gone into a community, and there were maybe 6 organizations working in the medical sector. There were 4 organizations working in the education, and we were there to support the children for education. And it took us not even a week's decision. We said, okay, well, if there are other organizations who are ready to help you, we are happy to take a step back. So from the beginning, we are very clear with the beneficiary or the beneficiaries or the communities. So yeah, I mean,
Like one of the stories I had written, I remember, because initially we really help people who have never had succor before and who need that push. So I remember when I was writing down my notes, the social worker coming and telling me that this child had got a very serious gash, and in the initial years of us being a beneficiary for that child. And he had noticed that the family doesn't really treat even a gash seriously. The hygienic practices of dressing and all of that was not there. So they are handheld in the beginning, starting from taking a child to the hospital, acquainting the parents to the whole network of hospital and dispensary and medication, and being at the beck and call of the beneficiary initially for every small thing. And then it's very easy for a social worker to feel good. You feel like God intervening, But then the thing is that next time something happens, what do? You make the call saying, you reach the dispensary, I'm coming. So you see, it's small things like this. You reach the dispensary, I'm coming. So the parent has to do that. The third time there is an emergency, a fever or something, you say you reach the hospital and you know the system. If you have a problem, call me. So you must understand, first of all, that we are really helping those who have never had help before. So there, our selection process is very rigorous. Second, even for small things like this, we do not want to become the SOS link person all the time. Yes, we are there for emotional support. In COVID, I think it demonstrated that we were really their lifeline. But slowly, you empower them. There are structures available. There are systems available. Acquaint it to them and slowly make yourself redundant. Explain to them how things are done. Give them the confidence that they can go walk into an office and get this permit. Initially we fill up your forms for you and everything, but later on, slowly you learn to do it yourself. So while we are there for them, we are not there for them for every small thing in a prolonged period of time. So that is how we slowly empower them with our interventions.
Got it, because it's very important that the empowerment doesn't become a eventual crutch, where you constantly need the crutch going on. So now let's get into so the back to school program. But before you guys talk about the back to school program, I also want to incorporate a question that I think is a very good question that a live viewer has asked. So they have asked, the in your experience, in your work, have you generally seen circular migration in rural areas, or there is permanent migration to urban areas? That's the first part. And also, what have you seen in your research about the general condition of schools in the last 20 years?
Oh, yeah.
Good question.
So, no, the migration, no, we have not seen. And, as we make it very clear that, in fact, we have worked with few villages around Pondicherry, and all of them are agricultural based villages. And in the beginning, we helped these villages to develop the infrastructure. 20 years ago, when we started the work, they had no electricity, they had no road, because Pondicherry also has this unique geographical, very interesting, because you're walking in Pondicherry and abruptly the borders end, and then you're in, few kilometers, you're in pockets of Tamil Nadu, and then again Pondicherry starts. So what happens to these villages and areas which are sandwiched, between Pondicherry, and it's precisely these areas where we start to work, and we always intervene, and that's where our work comes. And we have helped these villages to develop the infrastructure, and we opened a creche, for example, in one village, because most of the mothers were all agricultural laborers and they were going to work, and as a result, the older children were taking care of the young ones. And the need was to start a creche program, a drop-in center, which would allow the mothers to go out and continue to work, and allow the older children to go to schools. And so coming back to, sorry, the question was migration. No, we haven't seen any migration, except for students who have pursued, who have gone on to pursue their higher studies. They have gone, yes, to different states, in fact, and different parts of India to do their nursing, and only this younger generation. But the families, no, they are very sufficiently happy to be in that area, because this has been their home, and nobody wants to, even if they're small scale farmers, if they own a piece of land, nobody wants to give away that land, right? I mean, even if it's a small piece. So they're happy to be in that area. The condition of the schools, well, 20 years ago when we started work in few areas and villages in Pondicherry, my God, that was terrible. Forget about the toilet facilities, there were no teachers. And we started working in areas, yeah, there were no teachers. How do you expect these schools to run without any teachers? So we have worked with several schools in the villages, brought these teachers, even paid the salary in the beginning to the teachers, and ensuring that the school gets a good enrollment and children are at school. But things have changed and evolved so much since 22 years, and there is a I mean, I'm not saying that because of our presence, there is a growing consciousness, and I think that comes mostly from the women. We have seen a lot working with these areas and in these villages. Somewhere the women of our country, they have this formidable strength, and I have always been amazed at that. Always. And I mean, they are the ones who have taken the responsibility to, so many times we have gone to these, when we were revamping or starting the school and trying to increase the number of school going children in different schools. We were like, we had the support from all these mothers, because they also want a better life for their children, right? Slowly that has evolved, and there is as I keep saying, there's a growing consciousness, and things have come a long way. And it's also satisfying for us, and sometimes to see that we are again no longer needed there. And they come to us and tell us that okay, now our child is going to be finishing 12th grade. Now my daughter is interested in pursuing nursing, or my son is interested in pursuing engineering. Now you have to help us. And that's a fantastic point for us. And this is exactly what we want, right? So yeah, I mean, we have come a long way. People have come a long way, and it's nice to see that. It's nice to see the development.
Migration, I think the only point I can make is I have written some stories where, say, the previous generation or them when they in their childhood were landless laborers, rural, and they have come to the city, living in slums or streets, looking for better prospects, but still remaining unskilled. So that is, if at all migration you want, that is the only thing that I have seen. I mean, we don't have stories of out of state, maybe just one story. But that is because of family compulsion, not because of, it was not because of looking for a better job.
We haven't come across.
But it's, the only thing is coming from a rural, landless, unskilled situation to an urban slum dwelling, looking for work in town sort of situation. Exactly. I don't think there's any other.
No.
All right. So now let's get into the details of the Back to School program. So what exactly is this program all about?
So the Back to School program actually is the beneficiaries are children who are first generation schoolgoers. Okay. The beneficiaries also almost overwhelmingly are red ration card holders. So we really target those who need the help. We do not target those who even have some help. We really go to those. So that is the demography we target. So we have two programs. The city and slum, the slum and street that go to schools, government aided schools in the city, and then we have the rural. So in the rural setup in the Angalakupam village, it's very interesting because every child, it's part of a collective sponsorship program. Every child goes to school under the program. So any child in Angalakupam goes to school.
Exactly.
So, and earlier the scenario was that the older children used to look after the younger children while the mothers used to work. So Angalakupam is actually quite a total sort of a intervention that we have. So we have the creche where the younger children can go. So every child is taken care of, they go to school, enabling parents to be double wage earners for the family. So that is one setup in the rural. In the urban area, we have moved away from the godfather-godchild relationship that donors have towards the child they are sponsoring. As she mentioned very clearly, we want to be a program-driven institute organization. So it's not that X amount of money given for a Y child should be used for that child alone during the course of the scholastic year. What we have told our donors, and they have all agreed to our philosophy, is that these children need to go to school. You can audit who we are taking as our beneficiaries. So they are free to see that we really cater to those who really need to go to school. We need funds, and the requirement for a child can be different from another child. Therefore, we have broken away from the parrainage system, from the donor, godfather or godparent to godchild relationship. What we have done is that, give us, if you trust our interventions, we have a pool of funds for the back to school program, wherein our main objective is to send children back to school, to see to it that they don't drop out, to sometimes give nutritional supplements if we see that the child is very, very sick, or to give all sorts of other supplements, different, and every child is different. So that is a huge change actually. That's a very big contrast to other models where you have X amount of money given by Y for one child. So that is the back to school model. So in the process, we are sending
almost around nearly 900 children, and we work with almost 80 schools across Pondicherry, and out of that almost 40 are government schools, and that is very important for us because it also matches the kind of beneficiaries with whom we are working. And we talk about they're all red ration card holders and first generation schoolgoers. The family situation is challenging, and we ensure that these children are first primarily enrolled in government schools. That's very, very important. And I think the second point that our work is makes it also interesting and really fruitful is our outreach. And it becomes, again, when I was talking about it, it is very easy to fall into this complacency and this, okay, a child has been, continues to get the support and then the child will go to school. But our work does not stop there because, when they come back home, for example, these children, many of these students, it is very easy to see them taking up odd jobs in the evenings, right? I mean, to supplement the family income. And during our outreach, in the beginning, we realized that, we have to do something about it, right? I mean, what is the purpose of, again, we don't want to say that, a child should not go and work because sometimes money is important. And it's very easy for us to go to a family, walk to the family and say that, no, don't send your child to work. And the family will look back and just say that, okay, the child is bringing an income into the family, what are we going to do? And that is where our work is also very holistic. And in doing so, we have again grown organically or developed projects. So back to school program, we realized that, when we started sending these children, we realized that, Homework Help Center was a very, very important aspect of this work. Because when children come back from school, they have absolutely no means or access to even do their homework. I mean, this is again 22 years ago, they had no electricity, for example. Now all of them have got one light service or they have electricity at home. So we have built a very robust homework help center where we invite teachers and we have employed teachers, in fact, and we receive today, as of today, because of COVID restrictions, almost 200 children every day to do their homework, because that is the time when the children come to the center and they do their homework. And thereby we ensure that these children are not picking up habits like, alcoholism, because we have seen too much. We have seen 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds getting into these, into these shops, and it's not been easy. It has been very, very challenging journey for all of us, and very easy for these children to be victims of various types of abuse. And we have to be also careful. We have to ensure that, and so Homework Help Center provides that kind of setup for us to ensure that, these children are not at risk, and thereby also ensuring that there is no dropout, because it's very easy for them to discontinue their studies, very easy. And that's where our outreach work is diligent and, holistic.
Yeah, and also, again, to give you an impression as to why these children need it. First of all, they cannot afford the tuitions. And without that supplementary, that in the school system, it's very difficult to even pass an exam. So we have qualified teachers who are there during the evening hours. So the children come from school and they are hungry like hell. So first thing we do is to give them a nice cup of hot milk and a snack. And I don't know, and I don't think the situation would have changed, especially after COVID. But for many of them, that is in fact the last meal of the day.
Yeah.
So literally the midday meal The midday meal is a huge incentive to send children to school. And then the homework help center snack that we give them is very often the last meal of the day for the child. So that is actually incentivizing them to come. And then we have trained teachers there at their disposal. And then there is more continued accompaniment for the children so that they can finish their homework, fill up the gaps they haven't understood in class. So the back to school has these two aspects. We literally send them to school, and then after school, we do the gap filling and we give them the meal. And there's a third aspect where they finish their 10th and 12th. And that is when we need to counsel them very diligently, because remember, these are people who have just come out of the unskilled labor sector, to really motivate them to get into vocational. So we have had dialysis experts, technicians, lab technicians, mechanics, AC repair people, all sorts of, even actually nursing. Some are outstanding.
We've had engineers.
Yeah, we've had engineers
Engineers
and people have gone into
Yes.
IT sectors. Two
Yes.
people whom we really motivate to take up things that will immediately pay and uplift their lifestyle. You know, their life situation. Literally, from eating one meal a day, finally that family will eat 4 meals a day.
Exactly.
You know, so after the 10th and the 12th, we really accompany them extremely closely, and we guide them to take up things that will immediately change their life. So these are the three aspects for back to school.
So if I was to ask you guys, what are the possible roadblocks and problems you guys face? I know you did touch upon it, but if I was to say, what are the problems you face, and what kinds of interventions are needed then?
I think the first would be that there is, by sheer virtue of the economic background of these families, the real philosophy when we talk about we don't want these people to the families to become dependent. I think the biggest challenge that we face is that given the circumstances, given their economic condition, sometimes it is not easy for them to continue with their studies, and very easy for them to drop out. Extremely easy for them to drop out, because there is this. I mean, I'm not saying that it's growing, but yes, okay, we will continue till 12th. Then what? What are we going to do after 12th? I mean, okay, we'll do graduation. What are we going to do after graduation? Because let's not forget that they're all first generation school goers, and going to a college itself is challenging for them. And then when they see that most of them end up either as sales girls or not I mean, the examples that we are talking about are small numbers, right? Small figures. I mean, we are talking about nurses, but these are all huge success stories for us. I mean, especially when we look at the background. So I think we need to work a lot on creating this not just awareness, but also some way taking the content up and work with different schools and give them the possibility of this, how do I say that, during our homework help centers, to give them content that makes it easier for them to not just fall in love with the academics, but they don't have the possibility of how do I say, they don't have the possibility of nobody is there, let's say, to teach them properly. Let's say, there was a boy, for example, I'm just reminded of the story. There was a boy called Jana, who was brilliant in mathematics. Alo has, I think, penned his story. Yes. Absolutely brilliant, from the streets of Pondicherry. And this, it was so difficult for the school to even focus on that. And we started, extra tuition classes. And so there are children who are bright, but we need to identify these children. And the biggest block for us is to match these interest along, and match it with potential support system. Viability also, that, yeah, definitely. So that is extremely challenging, and I don't think so we have arrived there, because for us, just the fact that, these children are continuing to go to school itself is a huge success. But we really would like to introduce them to science, to so many aspects. There are children who come and ask. We had, in fact, for example, somebody coming from, we work with an organization, a very interesting organization called Samskriya Foundation from Chennai, and she was, there was this person who was coming on a regular basis to teach different experiments, scientific experiments, and these children were like, wow. And we know that there are children where we can tap the sheer brilliance of their minds, but yeah, but we have not been able to do that, and that's a pity. I mean, we are like, I mean, frankly putting it, we are lost also. We don't even know how to go about it. I mean, that is for us the biggest challenge.
So a follow up, and I'm going to incorporate another question from a live viewer here. So are interventions based on gender too? Like there might be different interventions for a boy vis-a-vis a girl. So somebody has asked, is there increased school absenteeism or dropouts among, let's say, when girls attain a menstruating age? And is Sharana trying to, maybe teach girls more about those aspects although in the health and all those other areas too? Are you guys facing those problems too, which are gender based?
In the
Yeah,
beginning,
we
we had a
We
lot of
had.
problems when the girls would attain puberty. The school dropout used to drop, and that was very common, very common. But this is, I'm talking of 10 years ago,
Yes.
but not anymore. I think our work speaks for itself, and I think no, we don't see this number drastically getting reduced. Yes, simultaneously we do create a lot of awareness on menstrual health. We work with like-minded organizations, and for example, we have a very interesting program of sports, and it was initially challenging for us to enroll girls into this program because the families were not ready to send girls wearing track pants or t-shirts to go and play. But that was years ago, not anymore. No, absolutely not.
But I must
Okay,
add
now
that
let's.
a couple of
Sure,
stories
sure.
during
Go ahead.
COVID put a lot of pressure on parents to marry off their girls, and our social workers, have done some exemplary work in preventing that from happening. Convincing one girl, a story I wrote, she was encouraged to relocate from Coimbatore, where the family had shifted, because she had promised, and she kept on reaching out to the social worker saying, "I want to study." But she's an extra mouth to feed for the family, and she had reached 16, 17, that age group. And so I think that story made me very happy during COVID times, that actually we convinced the parents first to let her appear for the 12th exam, and then she scored well. So then we convinced them to let her enroll into a vocational training program. And the thing is that one of the things we do is we pay them a stipend to incentivize the fact that they should continue with the vocational training and not get into some paltry engagement elsewhere, like a sales girl or something. I'm not condemning the work. What I'm saying is that it is if you have upskilled more, you don't need to do something that takes your skill level low. So during COVID times, I think our social workers, there have been cases where they have really done extremely extensive, thorough outreach to prevent girls from getting married. Uh, but
But
like
yeah,
she said, by and large, we have crossed that step.
yes, yeah,
As a society, that step has
yeah,
been crossed.
yeah.
All right, now let's talk about another program that you guys have, which is the social entrepreneurship program for women. Now, this is something I was really interested in. I'll give you a small story. So, I was also working in a couple of villages under the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, and over there we obviously we tied up with Anita Dongre's foundation, and they set up a proper manufacturing unit for tribal women. And women work there even now. They are manufacturing garments for Global Desi and stuff like that, and they have a huge program there. And so many women were working. So I actually was very excited. So what exactly is this about?
So yeah, it's a flagship program of the organization. We are super excited about it because it's new, yet at the same time we have had an experience in a village when we almost 10 years ago, and we had started a microcredit program in the village. Well, not microcredit, social entrepreneurship in the village 10 years ago, and it was phenomenally a successful program. But somehow, because of lack of funding, and we had to close down that project. And you know how, as I keep saying, that we have grown as an organization organically based on the needs of the community. So this program, we became seriously interested because once we kind of established this back to school program, and we if you remember, I spoke about that we have always been immensely impressed with the strength and the resilience of the mothers with whom we have been working, with the women we have been working. And once we kind of established this back to school program, and because of a sheer interaction with the mothers, because their children were coming to a center, we were very keen. And it was also again going back and forth. The women were coming and asking us, because most of them are working as housemaids or working as cleaners in some places, and there came a time when not one, not two, but more than 25-30 women were coming and asking us about giving them a loan, because they were interested, they got the confidence, and they knew that their children will not just continue their studies. And so this idea was kind of born again organically, because we thought that this is going to be an interesting program, because the basic idea behind us was not only to empower the women, but also, once the business is established, once the business takes off, to create less and less dependency in the organization. And that was quite an interesting angle that we thought that we should look at. And, if we are talking about exit policies, if we talk about, as a philosophy, we really want to ensure that children should not, or the family should not become dependent, we need to find solutions also, right? And we thought that this could be an emerging solution where we empower the women, we help her to start an economic activity, and once the business is established, thereby reducing the load on Sharana. And we thought we'll experiment it, and we met few women, and they were super receptive about it. And they said, yes, we also do not want to continue to be dependent on the organization. Be sure that, we are going to continue to send our children to school, and we can study. So that is how the project was born. And it wasn't, again, difficult, because we already knew the mothers very well, right? The only challenging part for us was what could be the nature of the business. And that is where we had to study the viability of the business proposal. We were also new in this field, and we did not have any help. And it was a very transparent discussion, and we stuck with very basic business models, like, again, knowing Pondicherry, a fruit cart would have always, we thought, okay, that's not a bad idea. A small tiffin shop is not a bad idea, where the loan amount is also not very big. And that's how we started the project. And interestingly, in the rural area, the villages where we are working, we also wanted to target those women. They were very keen on getting a cow. Now, when we are talking about a cow, it costs something like 45 to 50,000 rupees. And we did not want to give, we had to cap the amount, right? And we did not want to exceed more than 18 to 20. And again, because of discussion, they said, okay, they are ready to support 50% of the funding, and we gave them 50% of the funding. And that's how the program grew. And again, we were taking baby steps. We did not want to start with 50, 60 women. Luckily, we got the funding from Luxembourg, somebody who was very keen on, who came to visit our program. In fact, he came as a donor to audit some other project, the skill development project. And we were just pitching this idea, and he was very interested, and he said, okay, go ahead, and we are ready to help you with some funding. And we started really slowly, and in 1 year we saw that the repayment, of course, it's an interest-free program, and we do not charge any interest, and the repayment was quite successful, and they were sincere. And even things like, for example, during Deepavali festival, they would come to us, and they would say that, sorry, this month we cannot repay. We can repay, but we do not want to repay, because we want to keep this money for the festival in the house. And, so we kind of established a very nice rapport with the women, and things just evolved. We are lucky, of course, we worked for it, and a lot, and slowly the number grew, and today we are supporting more than 120 loans we have distributed. And yes, sometimes we have challenges when it comes to repayment, and COVID, of course, took a big toll on the businesses. It was not easy for the women, but by and large, they're again coming back. They're like bouncing back, right, and slowly, and they're always very, very aware of the fact that their ultimate objective is to become independent. Some of them have taken, for example, top-up loans, and they have never forgotten the fact that there is a kind of if I can say, a soft movement that we are like trying to advocate, that if the business picks up really well, their children should not be getting the support from the organization. And they have always, kind of nurtured it, and they're aware of it, they're conscious of it, and we are quite optimistic, and we have supported them with a lot of value added workshops, and we organize meetings for them, and with different resource people, because as I told you that we are not equipped to handle everything, right? And the ultimate objective is, apart of course from that, is to also help them to learn to save, right? I mean, that makes it the most challenging part of this work, because the husbands are aware of the fact that these women are earning an income, and so the fact that we open bank accounts, the fact that every loan that is distributed is also not given as cash. We give it as a check payment, and it goes directly into the account. And it's interesting yet challenging for the women and for us as an organization, because the minute 30th or 31st comes, the husbands are waiting. Sometimes the husbands have walked into the area of work, and they know that the wives have got money, and they harass them. They want the money because they want to go and drink, and that still continues to remain a challenge. But we are getting there. We are getting there to help them to learn to save, and the transaction should be between the woman and the bank, and but we have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Yeah, so I think with regard to the women entrepreneurship program, what we saw during COVID was that some of them had just got them loans. The businesses were just 2 months old, and it came to a complete halt. So if you, I invite your viewers to actually browse through our website. We have a blog with 15 stories of women, how they innovated. Like, for instance, if she had a skill during festivals, she etches names on rice grain, So she basically, her enhancement of business was to give her a better cart and things like that. And obviously with the temples closed and festivals off, that particular business came to a complete halt. So it's interesting how these women, once the taste of independence was felt, they innovated. They innovated. What is their skill? They know how to make idli. What is their skill? They know how to set curd. What is their skill? They know how to. They will take the trouble to go to the wholesale market and bring the produce to their little shops and sell it for a marginal profit and give it to the people during lockdown. So they took risks and they innovated. Somebody selling saris started to open a tiffin shop. After the initial lockdown finished. And then slowly they went back to the old business once the lockdown relaxed.
Yeah.
But the resilience we saw
absolutely
in these ladies not willing to give up the autonomy was phenomenal. And it's not that debt didn't accrue. It did. But they didn't give up. They just didn't give up. And amazing stories of resilience.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually was going to be one of my questions, that how bad has COVID hit, not only the beneficiaries of the help that you guys are going to be giving. I mean, COVID did a number on everyone. So I was just going about it. Good that you spoke about it. But now, because we are in the latter half and, we'll be winding up. So now let us focus this. So let's say if somebody did want to support you guys, we've covered the programs, we've covered them in detail. So let's say if somebody came to me and told me, "Arey bhai, tune podcast to kar di, support kaise kare?" And I know, the normal cliched thing is, yeah, I know there is the financial aspect to support, which is obviously, as they say, bhuke pet bhajan na hove gopala. So, obviously money is needed in everything. That is there. But what I wanted to, also request you guys is that, yes, the first bit is obviously supporting you guys, but beyond that, also, how can people support you if they wanted to?
I think we would be happy to have some, volunteers. This is something that, as an organization, we face this challenge, right? I mean, from Indian volunteers, we receive applications from throughout the world. I mean, I'm talking of an average of almost 500 applications in a year from across the world. I mean, Europe, America, Australia, New Zealand, and all. And we don't take even a single one. We just don't encourage that. That's a different topic. But what would be interesting is that, as an organization, if we can receive volunteers with specific skills, right? I mean, which we can define later. I mean, when somebody is interested, I mean, based on specific skills, if they can come and spend a few weeks to few months to impart those skills, not only to the, it's not just to the beneficiaries, but even the team requires, right? I mean, we are blessed with a phenomenal team. All of them are doing a fantastic job, but even something like report writing, let's talk about that. And you send the social worker to the field. This social worker is going to do a fantastic job, brilliant job, come back and all, but how do we translate all of that into report? So it would be interesting for us to receive and see more Indians coming to volunteer with us with specific set of skills. That would be the first thing I would like to say. Yes, as you say, money is important, but we would be extremely happy to receive some volunteer support from anywhere in the country.
What we have seen is that during COVID times, we must admit that hunger came back very strongly, and we distributed about 2 lakh
lakhs.
packets of food, and we saw Indians being very forthcoming, relatively, to give money for feeding, which is actually very instinctive with us. But we have other programs too, and now that we have described to you the way we use the funds, it would be interesting if they come with specific intentions to enhance any of our programs in that sort of way.
Yeah.
That would be very
Absolutely.
good. But one must say that one of the fallouts was that hunger came back very strongly,
it was
and
terrible.
we just stopped distributing our food packets actually,
Yeah.
since Omicron.
I mean, there was a time when COVID hit the country. There was a time, it was in just down 2-3 months later. We all felt that 20 years of work has been undone. We were so scared because these children would discontinue their studies, and as Alo says, that hunger was so predominant. I mean, we have witnessed a child walking into the center because when we reopened, for example, when we reopened the center, when we got the permission from the government, and soft openings were happening, so we wanted the children to come in. Digital divide was a huge
That is very
thing.
important here.
Digital divide was felt. I mean, none of these government school going children had access to education for two years. So we established smart classrooms, and we started inviting children, nearly 250 children every day to come. And so we had a curriculum, based on the in Tamil medium, and based on the age group. And then we were really bringing the children from 8 o'clock in the morning, and imagine making the food every day to distribute every day. Almost 1,000 meals were being distributed. So we have witnessed, like, for example, an 8-year-old kid waiting at 8 o'clock in the morning, knowing very well the center is going to open at 9, with a hope that he will get some tea or some biscuit or anything to drink, because only to after talking to him, only to realize that this child has not eaten for 2 days. And hunger was such an issue. And we have so many stories that the first thing for us that we decided to do was to start making food. Yes, provisions we distributed, but then we said, no, we have to start making hot meals. And it was a very simple meal, and we were distributing 1,000 meals a day. And because, lack of midday meal program, the schools were shut down. And as we have as we have spoken in the beginning, that many of these children, this is the only access they have to a proper meal, a midday meal program at school. And when this was shut down, they had no access. And it was a very, very difficult time for us as an organization, but really nice to see that many Indians came forward and donated to distribute food. And
So I think, volunteer is one thing there where we've definitely. The other thing is that, given the fact that we have very detailed record keeping in a master database of all our children, the modes of intervention, the types of programs, failures, successes, improvements, we would actually love if people with academic backgrounds came and used our data and generated really, I'm sure, very interesting information would come out after processing what we have done in the last 20 years to show what works, what doesn't,
Exactly.
and improvement in lifestyles, because we have it all in detail from our outreach in a master database. But we need someone with that sort of research-oriented academic background to be able to see the work that we do, and surely this work can be translated into into really
Papers,
into
academic
papers
papers.
that can
Yeah.
ultimately show that these sort of practices work. And
Yes.
because you see, the good thing about Sharana, and that is one thing that really attracted me to the organization as well as my father's work, is that there is nothing theoretical. And one of the things that Rajkala told me when I spoke to her first, and I really love that story, is that she kept going back to the village again and again and again, because here she was a graduate, she knew, she had worked in an NGO, and she realized that none of the solutions you are taught in your head actually is applicable till people you are wanting, you
To
think
change.
you need to change, come up with what they need. So very often there is a divide between what you think they need and what they actually need. So the solutions have to come from them. So we have really worked practically with what they want. The beneficiaries have dictated our attitude. So there is, I think, a lot of material there that can be processed into really good information. So I think that is one of the fields where we would really love
Absolutely.
people with expertise to come and look at what we have done and write.
We have a tie-up with few institutions here, academic institutions, but it'll be nice but that is more for students to come and do their dissertation work when they're doing their master's program. But yeah, we are looking at somebody with this knowledge, with academic record, to come and translate all of this into some papers. That would be really interesting, because yeah, we have such a strong database, and sure, we can take out so much from the work that we have done over the last 22 years. Yeah.
All right, so I want to put the website up now on the screen. So this is the reason I'm putting it up. So now tell me. So look, a good chunk of this podcast has viewers outside India. In fact, let me tell you very honestly, most of the time I get so many emails from my viewers, and they always tell me, how do we don't even understand who does what, and how do we do about it. So if I was to tell you guys, yes, so if so how so how can people, let's say within India or outside India, how do they go about if they did want to support Sharana monetarily?
Well, they can in the website there is a button, a contribute button, and if they want, they can directly contribute there. We have the FCRA, and the Indians can contribute in the ICE account. But there's also an option to write to us directly, and introduce themselves, because we are okay to the fact that sometimes donors are interested in giving particularly to women's programs, women's issues, or children. That kind of flexibility is certainly allowed. So either they can reach out to us directly via the mail, or contribute directly using the website. So these are the two options, and this is how we have worked, because we have received mail sometimes directly from people who are interested in contributing, knowing more about the organization. They want to establish that kind of personal touch with us. Who are we? And it's nice for them to see the website, but it's also nice for them to get to know us a little bit. And then we have nurtured this contact, and then they have gone on to support the projects. So otherwise, they can also directly contribute.
So this is one thing I like to say as an outsider looking into Sharana. What I have noticed is that whenever we have donors coming in, we are extremely open to them auditing the programs that they have given money for, or we tell them that this is what we are doing. And what I have noticed with Rajkala is that, because she is extremely competent with her knowledge as well as extremely good communication skills, she actually withdraws. After an initial introduction, she withdraws from the visit, and she lets the donor with the social worker informed go to the field and check for themselves. So we are extremely transparent that way. With regard to FCRA, we welcome every scrutiny the government is putting up with.
Oh, we welcome it.
We welcome it a lot.
Yes.
As well as for our donors, they are free to go and audit the work that we do.
Yeah.
And we and the board members, or the founder, she doesn't go. Time and again, I have observed that she, after a brief introduction, which is almost like a curtsy, she actually lets the social worker take the donor to the field, and they make an independent assessment. So that way, we would like to assure our donors that should you want to do an audit, we welcome it.
Absolutely.
We welcome it. If certain donors require a certain amount of paperwork from us, we do it, because their donations also have to be audited. So we completely understand that, and we really, that way, from an outsider looking in, I have rarely seen this sort of transparency, because I don't work on the field, but this is something I have noticed from the start.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I think
Yeah,
it's
I think
it's a
it
very
should be
important.
mentioned,
Yeah.
like, I think what we do right, we should speak.
Yes.
And what is rare, we really do not discuss the program in the in an office,
Yeah.
serving them tea. We say, go ahead, go and look.
Yes.
If you're saying this is what has happened to that girl, go ahead and check, go and
Yeah.
talk to her.
And yes,
So,
I mean, we are not afraid to show them that we have
Yes.
failed sometimes,
Yes.
right? I mean, we have not succeeded sometimes. So it's okay. It's okay to tell them these stories. Most important is to ensure transparency,
Correct.
and that we take pride in that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And rule compliance.
Yeah.
Compliance.
One more thing I wanted to talk about was, a lot of times when we get into the world of social work and stuff like that, one thing I've noticed is it tends to be that uh, the admin cost, right? The admin cost is, so as a donor, if I'm a donor and I'm investing X number of rupees, so what happens is, this was something that Peter Singer came up with, this concept of effective altruism, and it was built up by other philosophers. And there is this interesting thing, everything has a Western certification. Even this is like Western certified. So there is this website called givewell.org, right? So they audit NGOs, and they audit everyone, and these NGOs are good. So why I'm mentioning this as a passing reference, it has nothing to do with you guys, is that those nations have actually mastered the art of communication sometimes. So, in my view, they have these institutional ways of taking a look at this. But having said that, it was an absolute pleasure to talk to both of you. I was going through even whatever you guys sent me, but I did not want to say this. I, in fact, did not even tell you guys offline about this whenever we've had a chat. But I actually started reading your work. I actually went on your website and I had done my own homework. So I was reading as much as possible. I was trying to understand, because of my own background of working in rural India and slums in Mumbai. So actually, I could relate to a lot of things you were saying. I could relate to a lot of programs and problems that you face. And it's very interesting that I sit here in Maharashtra, and most of the work I have done in the last decade or so has been Maharashtra centric. So it's very interesting how culture also plays a role, how cultural nuances lead to different experiences. But it's an absolute pleasure talking to both of you. So I'll leave the last words with both of you. So if there are any closing comments, please go for it.
Anyway, first, Kushal, thank you for giving us this platform. I mean, I am a regular listener, and I'm actually quite happy to be part of your program, and especially talk about Sharana. And I'll tell you my experience with Sharana. The reason why I wanted to get an out of a different experience for my life, I keep telling the social workers that, I don't think I contribute anything to the organization. You have no idea what a life experience it is for me to be in such close connect with such reality. And I don't, again, insist that this is not some romantic attachment to a poorer India, not at all, because that is not my background. To me, it is important to see the change. I've seen the change in rural India where the farm is, and I've seen the interventions here. I've listened to the stories. I've spoken to the beneficiaries, and I listened to the social workers. I grill them with questions, and to me, this organization is not just a place I just, I have time, let me do. To me, it has become central to my growth. And really, I thank Rajkala for allowing me to be part of it, despite no real qualification. But to me, it has been life changing, and I really, really thank this opportunity to be part of this organization and to be able to speak about it today. Yeah.
Thank you, Kushal, for, I think, yeah, I don't even know what to say, but I think the fact that, for the first time, we've also got this opportunity to reach out to so many viewers at one shot is something that truly, truly I'm grateful. And I think, yeah, the most important thing that I have always, looking back 22 years that I've been working, very often the challenge that I have faced is that why is there so much of hesitancy by the Indians to support Indian organizations? And today when we are talking about, like, our organization is completely dependent on FCRA funding. I mean, I would love to see the day when we receive maximum fundings or support from the Indians, from the locals, as opposed to the Westerners, right? But I'm grateful to all the donors who have been supporting us. And so I don't know, maybe this was perfect. This was an opportunity that you gave us, and with the hope that our work will reach out to, will reach people, will, the work that we are doing will speak for itself. And as we keep constantly saying that, we welcome visitors. Please, it's not just coming and visiting the website. We are happy to welcome visitors to come and take a trip, to come and visit our work, and we are happy to present our projects. And that is something that has always been my wishful thinking, very strongly, to see a day when we will receive more support from the Indians. And yes, I mean, I thank you for giving us this opportunity for this podcast. And yeah, looking forward.
The pleasure is all mine. First of all, before we close today's, congratulations to both of you and your entire organization. You guys are doing fantastic work. And like I said before, as someone who has been involved in social welfare and different kinds of activities, I can totally relate to the problems you guys go through. You know, even the slightest problem can lead to the complete decimation of one's reputation or the organization's reputation. So I know how careful one has to be when one goes and does this. So first of all, I salute your spirit and your dedication. Once again, guys, whether you're watching this on YouTube or whether you're going to be listening to this on the audio platforms, doesn't matter, whichever one you are used to. In the description, I have left the link to the website of Sharana. It is sharana.org. You can just go and visit the website. You don't have to trust me or anything. Go visit the website, look at their work, check it out. And if you're convinced, I know a huge chunk of this podcast is the diaspora Indians. मुझे बहुत सारे लोग हमेशा ईमेल करते रहते हो, कुशल भाई कुछ बताओ क्या करना है, कैसे मदद करें इंडिया की। भाई ऐसे मदद कर सकते हो इंडिया की, ऐसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस की मदद कर सकते हो। और लाइक दे सेड, इट्स नॉट जस्ट अ मॉनेटरी एस्पेक्ट, दे आर लुकिंग फॉर वॉलंटियर्स, दे आर लुकिंग फॉर पीपल हु कैन राइट essays, who can do all sorts of things inside their organization and with their organization. If you're down there in Pondicherry, do go and visit them. They will be more than transparent with your work. And look, my job through this podcast when I started was not just shouting about political things. I wanted to talk about a wide array of things, a wide range of things that cover different aspects of life. So it doesn't matter if it's mixed martial arts and the next day I'm talking about some organization doing work in rural India on women's empowerment and stuff like that. The main aim of this platform was to give a platform to a multitude of voices, and I hope I'm successful in that. And I just want to close today's podcast on that. Look, if you want to do the right thing, all you need is a little bit of a never say never kind of attitude. And I appreciate Rajkala and Alo. These guys are doing fantastic work. So once again, please go and visit their website, give them a look, and if you like it, please support them. And if you like what I do, please support the Cārvāka podcast too. I will see you now. I know I did not do a podcast on Monday, so I'll compensate for that on Saturday, and also Friday we'll have another podcast. I will leave you guys at that. As always, please support the podcast, like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments, and I will see you guys next time. Until then, take care.